And then there's another paranormal aspect that results from the massacre. And there's a museum in Las Vegas called the
Museum of the
Mob
Dead.
Museum.
Oh, macabre, yeah.
And they actually have a chunk of the brick wall that Moran's men
Really?
that were lined up
No
against.
way.
Yeah, and you can see, if you go there and you can see this wall, you can see the bullet holes in the bricks.
Wow.
And
Do you think there's any paranormal activity near that? I bet there is.
I think that's an interesting thing, because I had read too that there's been numerous sightings around the old brewery, because that's what it was. It was a brewery
Really?
where they were doing that. But there's also sort of the idea of saying, you know, those who were shot dead in the garage, they weren't found until about 3 hours later.
that's right.
It wasn't an immediate.
Oh no.
Nobody just called the police and went, oh my God, there was, you know, like a
Oh no.
hit, right? It was many hours later before anybody even dared to step forward, because of course people just didn't, right? But it's kind of an interesting thing that they said that, you know, all those hours that went by, it certainly leaves the possibility of those persons who were murdered, that their spirits were able to, you know, stay within the area and within perhaps even the walls of the building or the garage, because technically I believe it was a garage where it happened, right? It was
a garage / warehouse. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know why I thought it was more out in the open. I thought
it was actually in.
I didn't realize. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they did it out on the street per se, but there's all kinds of interesting things that they talk about too with that building. I was just reading, actually, there's a really interesting one. It says a Canadian businessman, George Patty, bought bricks at auction. He points out he was the first one to take the bricks on tour and stop at galleries and shopping malls, and also tried to open a crime museum, but it wasn't successful. He finally reassembled the garage bricks in the men's room of his Banjo Palace nightclub in Vancouver, with the addition of a plastic screen set up in front of him to resemble the bricks. It became part of a urinal wall, which conveniently placed targets where men were supposed to aim their urine. These are charming little antidotes of women were allowed into the men's room at the bar to view the wall. So in Vancouver, you could visit the Banjo Palace, you could use the men's room, but it's no longer there. It closed in 1976, and then the wall was auctioned off again. So this is where now these bricks are, Ian. They're reassembled at the Las Vegas Mob Museum. Mm-hmm. So a total of 300 bricks are on display there. And people report hearing gunshots and men moaning and seeing figures falling to the ground. So interestingly enough, this happened on Clark Street in Lincoln Park, right? And so there's also reports now that there's a spirit of a dog that goes back and forth into the warehouse site. And it was possibly picked, it was the German Shepherd that was found after the massacre. So I guess they must have had a dog with them guarding the place. But, so there's all these kind of interesting little anecdotes of possible hauntings. Yeah. Or the fact that these bricks went on a tour and then ended up in a bathroom in a bar.
Strange.
And people could go, including women, you could go into the bathroom to view the bricks is, those are some strange stories.
Wow.
Strange stories.
That's funny.
That are linked to that. Now, I think that probably in modern times, that's something that a lot of people have heard of, at least in our lifetime. I don't know about younger generation. Like if I said to my kids Valentine's Day Massacre, they'd be like, what?
Really?
That is.
I thought everybody knew about it. I mean, they certainly did for my generation. Because people just sort of idealized and romanticized, gangsters and mobs.
Well, and there were so many movies, right? Hollywood did a great job of really, from the 60s onwards, filling our heads with lots of, these mob movies. I mean, there is a movie, even Valentine's Day Massacre. There's a film that they put out, and I think that was like 1969 or 60 something. I don't know offhand when that film was done. I know it's in the 60s, but I don't remember exactly what year. I have seen it since. It's pretty cheesy now when you think about it. Oh, at 1967, I just looked at it. So, but it had Jason Robards as Al Capone. Mm-hmm. So, but there was a lot of well-known actors at the time. But here's an interesting note from that movie, because I find it really interesting, right? So it was based on the Chicago, February 14th. Al Capone establishes himself as a city boss, organized crime, Bugs Moran's rival gang. So it's sort of the history of the incident and the lives affected, right, by this. So here's an interesting piece of trivia for the film that they did. It says, for the massacre scene in the garage, the actors playing the slain gangsters were shown photos and directed how to fall so their positions were identical to the real photographs of the massacre. 2 actors accidentally bumped together on the way down. And after seeing the photographs, they realized that they had fallen and collided in the exact same way that the slain gangsters had fallen and landed in the photographs. Mm-hmm. What's the chances of that?
Goodness.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh my goodness.
But they really made sure that they took the time to try to recreate those photographs as effectively as they possibly could. And then we get into, so many, there's how many movies and TV shows and
yeah, well, there was a movie and I believe a TV series called The Untouchables.
Yes.
That were based on all of that.
Yeah. That was Elliot Ness at the time, who
remember that. It was a good movie.
There's I'm looking at a list of gosh, there's loads of them. Even Some Like It Hot. Remember Some Like It Hot? Maybe some people won't remember that, but Marilyn Monroe and Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon, very well-known movie where they were dressed in women's attire to try to, pass. Even that has a reference to the Valentine's Day Massacre. Who knew? I've seen that movie.
I didn't know that. No, I didn't know that.
Apparently it does. Capone, which was put out in 2020, of course. This is after his 10 years in prison. And I think this is Tom Hardy, right, in this role as Capone. And I haven't seen this one, but apparently he's really, really good. Really good in the position. I don't really see Tom Hardy as Al Capone, but I suppose, he's an amazing actor. I suppose that with makeup and whatever that, you could really kind of, we kind of have this weird vision of Al Capone, I think, as this little small, kind of slightly rotund,
Well, that's how he appears when you see photographs of him. That's how he appears, is this stocky little balding Italian guy.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's Scarface, but not to be confused with Scarface, the more modern version. This one was called Scarface, The Shame of the Nation, and it was actually based on a gangster who climbs that ladder of Capone's mob and possibly is responsible for the Valentine's Day Massacre. There's Al Capone, the same Valentine's Day Massacre. There's several versions of that movie. Apparently, we have a 1997 version and a 2000 or a 1967 version. So they redid it again in. As for, being a day of, hauntings and that, I think around that area of Lincoln Park, certainly there may be spirits, there may be residual energy. Do you believe, though, and this is where I, as a psychic medium, and Rachel, you probably feel like this, if you take a bunch of bricks from a site and you move them, do you feel that it's possible that a spirit has gone with those, or the residual energy has moved with those?
Residual energy, in my opinion.
I would feel residual energy. right?
Yeah.
As a paranormal
not necessarily
investigator, I
spirit.
agree.
I don't
would
feel
say
like
it's residual.
Yes.
Yeah, because I feel like a spirit would be not attached to a brick. It doesn't have
why
an
would you be
emotional
attached to
attachment
his
to a
brick?
brick.
Yeah,
But
it's the
because there was
residual
like
energy.
a highly emotional, highly traumatic event happening at that site where they were all shot and killed, I do believe that energy may be imprinted on the bricks. So yeah, I definitely would go
Although,
with
if that were
residual.
the case, right? Because let's throw caution to the wind. Then how come we can have simple inanimate objects that can be haunted, like a pair of scissors or a spoon or a photograph?
I don't know.
Well, when you're okay, so taking that
That's
as
a
an
good
example,
question.
okay, scissors and a photograph.
That's
We're
a good
talking
question.
about personal possessions
Exactly.
Yes,
that a living person owned once upon a time.
certainly.
Right, like a
It's
ring.
different
Yeah.
from being lined up against a brick wall and being
being
peppered
shot.
with bullets.
Mhm.
But as I like to play devil's advocate all the time, but what if those guys, that was a really great place for them? They love to hang out there. They like to chat. It was their bro cave. They were all, hanging out on a daily basis. And it was a place that they really, really, really liked. What if?
No, I think it was just their warehouse that, the trucks came in loaded with barrels of, bootlegged beer, and it was just a workplace.
So it wasn't a bro cave. They weren't.
It wasn't a place where they played cards.
No, that's the feeling I get from it.
I just like to be devil's advocate because I feel like, we can't really justify that, my lip gloss container could be haunted with my spirit when I die because I've held it and I love it and it's my lip gloss. But a brick at a warehouse could potentially maybe hold that energy. I'm of the residual energy, but I just like to, like I said, I like to play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Because
I think it's fun. It's fun to explore these things, these questions. When it comes to these types of events.
I've never been to the Las Vegas Mob Museum to stand in front of these 300 bricks. That's a substantial chunk of a
Oh
wall.
gosh.
Yeah, it's big.
That's kind of morbid.
Yeah.
I don't know about morbid. I mean, see, I'm a collector of all these things, so that
I know you are. Yeah.
But I would feel like I would like to know, maybe one day if I get to Vegas, I don't really have any intention to go to Vegas, but if I do, I will visit the Mob Museum and stand in front of the wall and see if I can pick up some kind of residual energy from it. It's hard to justify, but I do like the story because often the story goes in places, directions, like this guy who buys them, a Canadian no less, who buys these 300 bricks and then puts them in his bar. And first they're on display, but then he decides to build them into the bathroom wall as part of the urinal. And puts a screen in front of it, a clear piece of plexiglass.
Well, that's okay.
Put targets on it so that you can.
No, let's not. I feel like that's really disrespectful. I feel like you might as well taking somebody's gravestone doing that. Oh God.
Does that not make for a great story? I mean, come on, that's just crazy. That's almost crazier than taking the bricks out and putting them in a museum. It's the whole side story that goes with these bricks.